Did you ever take banned substances to enhance your cycling performance?
Yes.
Did you ever blood dope or use blood transfusions to enhance your cycling performance?
Yes.
Shut up, Lex.
Hey guys, this is Faster You Full, brought to you by FitLab, Tailwind Nutrition, Biomax and Capital Cycles. If you're a cyclist and you want to go faster, then let's giddy up.
Don't stand on my dog or I cut your head off. Say hello.
Hey guys, listen up. It's time for money down your pants. That's right. So I've got a limited offer here for you from the bikini-clad women and guys, Biomaxa. That's right. So it's exactly like the Tory Brewery, except it's not beer. This is the best bio grease, bio lubricant, chamois cream, bio wash, bio degreaser you can get, made in New Zealand in Christchurch. You're going to go to biomaxa.com, fill your cart till it's just overflow. It's virtually overflowing, and there's stuff just falling out all over the sides with all of these delicious bio-friendly items for your bicycle. You're going to rock up to the counter and you're going to put in the code. Right, here it comes. 10% off the whole lot, 10% off all of the products, and they stick it in boxes and get it to your door for free. Free shipping. So go online. This is for online. You're going to rock up there. You're going to put in the code. The code's Steve Bale Fit Lab. Pretty simple. It's on the screen there. Capital S and capital B. And the Fit Lab bit is all in capitals as well. So you know we're going to do it. Look guys, the thing about the lube is it just does not come off. You've got to do a special process. It's not like a regular lube, but it's insane. Coming up winter, you cannot have a better lube for your chain. It's indestructible. The grease is a great all-round grease, nice bio grease for your components. So you're going to lube up your headset and the bottom bearing and all that for the water in winter. And look, I got to be honest, chamois cream, you're going to stick your hand down your pants, you know, as you do, and slather it right down there with a lovely bit of chamois cream, and you're going to ride so much better. And the kind of the rain and the cold, and you know, you do get to legitimately stick your hand down your pants, and I think that's a win all around. All right, Steve Bale Fit Lab, 10% shipping, products, you know what to do. Boom. Hey guys, how you going? Steve here. Hey, so today I thought I would go and check what would happen if you compared the efficiency of a mountain bike and a road bike on the same climb. I've always kind of wondered. I always wanted to know what would happen. I always wanted to know specifically with a dual suspension mountain bike, what's going on? What is the actual efficiency difference? What is the objective difference between the time, and so what wattage difference is made up in terms of all of the efficiency you're losing through movement in the suspension and in the tires? Now, so I went and did it. I put the power meters on the bikes. I checked they were valid and calibrated, and went out and had a look. So I've got the data here between the mountain bike here and the stages here on the same climb. So I thought I'd just talk through what that actually was and the repercussions it might have. And the sort of thought I had around it was, you know, obviously no one's going to use a road bike in, you know, a mountain bike race, but there could be times when you would actually want to look at whether or not it was worth you using, like say, a fully rigid, very hard set up mountain bike for a very smooth or flowing style course versus what the time benefit would be for using something with dual suspension. I mean, so I wanted to go and really measure what that was, devoid of other factors. So I did. So I'll just talk through the setups of the bike and things like that first. So the first thing I wanted to do was I wanted to use a stages crank on the mountain bike that I knew was calibrated right. And so I actually tried something which was to put a Stages 105, Shimano 105 crank onto a SLX mountain bike crank on my mountain bike. Normally the reason that you can't put a road crank on a mountain bike is because the Q factor is different. So lots of times people have this idea about getting it one Stages crank and swapping it between their mountain bike and their road bike if they want to use it on both bikes. And most of the time people say it's a bad idea, you shouldn't do it. And I'll second that. The reason they usually say is because the Q factor is different. So that's the bend of the crank. So if you held the crank parallel, the Q factor is like how far out the crank bends, you know what I mean? And the reason that a mountain bike one bends out further because it needs to be able to miss the stay, the chain stay on the mountain bike, which is usually much wider for clearance on a mountain bike than it is on a road bike. But this time around, I took it off and I just thought I'd try it. And actually, the clearance was pretty much fine. It was much closer. I'd say it's probably half a centimetre closer to the stay. And of course, in some mountain bikes, that may well mean that you can't use it. But on this one, you could. The other thing is that the spacing out of the bottom bracket might be different. But if you had the spacing of the bottom bracket the same, and you can use spacers for that, the actual splines are the same between road and mountain on the current generation of hologram cranks. So you can slap on a road crank if you were desperate. The Q factor difference is going to be kind of annoying if you're pedaling hard, and you might feel it's not going to be ideal. But yeah, I guess it's not really necessarily recommended. But I guess if there's one question to come out of this, can you do it? The answer is yeah, you can. You can change it. I mean, if we're going to look at the difference, I'll just do a little Google image search just to make sure you know what I'm talking about. So you look, Q factor, gives you this blimmin' stuff here. You see, that's the Q factor I'm talking about if you're watching this. So you can see here, mountain bike versus a road crank. You can see the one on the left, that's going to be a mountain bike crank, bends out further. It's a horrible way of saying it, but you know what I mean. Whereas the road one doesn't. Here's a better picture on, I don't know, what is it, an FSA crank or something. That's going to be a mountain there, bends out further. That's a road there. So it's going to feel a little bit funny if you were doing this on a regular basis, not to mention the fact that it's going to be a slight pain to mess around with. But if you're using Shimano, you can in a pinch. Anyway, so I wanted to use that crank because I knew it was correct. And so I did. I put it on my mountain bike. So mountain bike setup, I'm using a dual suspension Hongfu HF 68, 69, something like that. Dual suspension mountain bike. I've had it for a couple of years. It's been a good workhorse. It's getting a little bit bagged out now. It feels quite dull to ride now. It's sort of carbon frames do over time, but it's been pretty good, pretty strong. I've replaced the pivot bearings once. I'm pretty happy with it, really. It's a dual suspension, 100mm front and rear suspension mountain bike, cross-country specific mountain bike. RockShox Reba on the front, RockShox Monarch on the back. I set up the suspension so that it was reasonably soft because I wanted to really bring out any differences if there was through the suspension bobbing movement. And I, of course, opened the front suspension fork up so it was bobbing rather than locked out. Tyres is running at about 27 PSI, so not super low or anything like that, but lowish on a couple of 2.3-inch Schwalbe rocket runs. So the kind of setup you might use on a rough cross-country course to sort of give the idea of what the difference might be. So obviously on the other hand, so that's the mountain bike data there. We'll go through that in a sec. This is the road bike data. This is on my standard, a regular road bike setup that I've been using before. It's kind of like my control, if you like. It's just my regular training road bike. There's nothing unusual about it. So the first thing I just wanted to say about comparing the power data here is, of course, you can compare the power, but I just wanted to make it clear. I did, before the testing, jump on the scales, fully loaded, all the gear, bottles and everything I was using for each test. Make sure that the weights were correct, and then I normalized for that weight difference. So the mountain bike setup with me on the scales and everything, I can't remember exactly the number. I think it was 93.2 kilos on the road bike and 95.3 on a mountain bike. So there's a couple of kilos difference there, and of course most of that is in the bike itself. And yes, I normalized for that. So I went and figured it all out, did the math. And normalized for that difference. So then, so let's go through the numbers here. You can see on the run with the road bike, these are done exactly the same conditions, windless conditions. Yesterday, it was really nice conditions. Exactly 300 watts for the test sector, 8 minutes and 11 seconds. Here's the mountain bike data, exactly the same sector, 298 watts, so 2 watts lower. I mean, for the sake of 2 watts, let's not get too worried, but I've figured all that out as well. It's pretty much bang on exactly the same wattage, 9 minutes and 28 seconds. So you can see 8 minutes, 11 seconds for the road bike, 8 minutes, 11 seconds for the mountain bike. So that is good. So let's figure that out then in terms of percentages, wattages and stuff like that. So the difference in terms of normalizing for the weight alone, just so you know how I broke it down, was about 6 watts, and that's about 9 seconds. That's what the 2 kilos costs you. I mean, that's interesting in itself because people get super anal overweight. But you can see that even 2 kilos, which is massive, I mean, that's obviously like more than 2 bottles full of water. It's only costing you somewhere around 9 or 10 seconds for a 8 to 9 minute climb. So that's in quite a steep grade. The gradient here, 9.4%. So it's pretty interesting in itself. So let's look at after we normalize for that, the difference in terms of wattage. Let's get straight to it. 29 watts. So the difference is 1 minute, so 77 seconds. So when you to account for everything that isn't weight on the mountain bike, the difference is 77 seconds. So it's 70 seconds slower. That's not just going to be because of suspension movement. Of course, the tires are going to move a lot more. I can't remember the terminology for that, but there's a special word. Involves the word hydro, I think. Whatever it is, it's in there. It's moving about. The tread is going to absorb a lot more energy. The position is going to be slightly less aero. That's not going to make a lot. That would be certainly less than 5 watts. So it's mainly suspension movement, tire movement, and maybe a little in the drivetrain. I don't know. I'm running a 1x setup on the mountain bike, and whether or not the chain line isn't quite as good is also a possibility. But even if we took a best case scenario and we said those other little things might add up to about 10 watts, there is probably at least 20 to 25 watts, or just under 10% reduction in efficiency from using the dual suspension mountain bike versus the road bike. So there you go. So what you might want to do is look at next time, if you were planning out your assault on a particular cross-country mountain bike course, if it was something where there was a lot of fast climbing and there was no descending that was particularly technical or rough or rocky, where you could gain a lot of time from using a dual suspension mountain bike. This is only one, let's even it out to about 9 minute climb. Well, in a typical cross-country race, there might be, say, 30 minutes of climbing in there, 30 to 40 minutes. So somewhere around about 3 to 4, even 5 times this length The difference between a complete hardtail running very high pressures with a rigid fork is going to be pretty close to a road bike. It's going to be very good, and I will go out and test it one day. It's going to be a lot more efficient than the dually, that's for sure. Probably somewhere in between. I suspect it's going to be much closer to the road bike than it is going to be to the dually. So let's just say you saved half that amount of time. So if you're in, say, so you're saving 77 seconds, and that's for a quarter of it. Let's halve that. Let's be really, really conservative and say you're going to save 30 seconds on that same amount of climbing on a very rigid setup. Say there's roughly 4 times that in a cross-country Olympic mountain bike course. 3, 4 is 12, so 120 seconds. So around 120 seconds, or well over about 2 minutes in the space of an XCO course. Is that going to be able to be offset by things like not only the comfort and the leg fatigue by the dually, but the extra speed from the descent? I don't know, it might be worth trying. I have used a fully rigid bike in the past, and it really does make up for a lot. It might depend a little bit on where your skill set lies as well. Whether it's in, whether you are a very gifted technical rider, you might actually be better off making up for a little bit of time on the climbs and getting away with a rigid. So I think, it's worthwhile thinking about these things, because there is an additional, probably something around the amount, 20 watts in a climb in it for you, and that's pretty significant. So, yep, that is the difference. Okay, I hope that was interesting for you guys. Thanks for watching / listening to Fast You Fall, brought to you by FitLab, Capital Cycles, Tailwind Nutrition and BioMaxa. If you'd like to get in touch for a coaching program or testing, you can get hold of me, steve@fitlab.co.nz, or go to fitlab.co.nz. Talk soon, guys.